Oh, here we go. All right. So hi, everybody. We're live. Welcome to Sterling Silver Yoga on Wednesday nights, Intermediate Yoga. I'm Katie Luvat, and I'll be guiding your practice. And we need a chair today. So if you're at home, grab a chair and bring it to your yoga mat. And we'll also have a strap and a block nearby. We're going to begin on our backs, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second because we're going to set up in a special way on our backs. But just a reminder, as we are moving through our practice today, if there's anything I invite you to do and your body would rather not, like you have an injury or there's a mobility issue and it doesn't feel good, please know to trust your instinct and back off, or rest if you need a rest before I invite you to rest. Listen to your body. That's part of practicing yoga, practicing one of the first ethical precepts, which is called ahimsa, which is that we do no harm. We practice nonviolence in physically, but also mentally, just being kind to ourselves and having patience as we move through the practice. So we'll go ahead and get started. Now, I know that some of you are at home practicing and you have different chairs than us. In the studio, we have a chair that has an opening through the back of it. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna lie down and we're gonna put our legs up onto the seat of the chair and lie down onto our backs. And again, you have a strap and a block nearby. But it might be that maybe your chair doesn't have an open back. And so what you have to do is turn your chair onto and put your legs up onto the side of it. So you're just making do. Now, one more thing about chairs, if you're long-legged and your chair's on the shorter side, you could put a blanket down on the seat of the chair to increase the height of your chair seat. If you're short-legged and you have a really tall chair you're working with, you can put a blanket down for yourself, and then lie down on the blanket, and that will shorten the chair leg. So many options. And there you go. Go ahead and get settled. Your legs are up on the seat of a chair. And when you get down here, see if you can tip and tuck your pelvis a little bit. Make sure that it's free to rock. You can rock your tailbone toward the floor, the low back arches, and you can pull your pelvic rim into the floor and the low back flattens. And then landing somewhere between those two extremes, just arriving and being still and letting the arms rest alongside your waist and the palms roll up, and feeling the parts of you that are touching the ground held by the earth, feeling even a sense of widening, the pelvis getting wider and heavier, the back rib cage getting wider and spreading out, the back of the skull. And taking a few slow breaths in. You can close your eyes if you feel like it. You could just soften your gaze if you feel like it. And feeling how in this position, with our lower legs up on the seat of a chair, we're bent at a 90-degree angle about at the knees and at the hips, just about. It might be a bigger angle than that. But the cool thing is that you're not having to work for it. So our hip flexors right now are flexed, but they get to relax. It's a release. So feeling your groins release, feeling how your back can just relax here, and taking your hands to your belly and moving your next exhale out a little bit more completely, and feeling the belly nice and natural and at ease as you draw another inhale in, and maybe feeling the movement under your hands. Maybe you feel the belly expand and rest back toward the spine as the exhale moves out. It's not a matter of pushing the belly. So you're just letting it move in its own way as you draw a nice deep breath in. You might take one of your hands to your ribs and feel the ribs spreading and lifting in all directions, and then feeling the belly rest back and the ribs settle. We'll just take maybe 5 more breaths this way. unhurried, close to the ground, which is a nice place to be when it's a little warm out. Following your breaths in and out, hearing the sounds of the evening here, of the 4 o'clock hour in your house or in the building or outside or nearby. Just taking in the moment as it is. Now, when you're ready, you can just let your arms rest, and we're gonna do some pelvic rocking here, beginning by taking your tailbone. Think about where your tailbone is and pressing it down into the ground. And when you do that, your lower back will arch away from the ground. And that movement is big or as small as feels good in your body. On your exhale, pull your navel down and see if you can imprint your pelvic rim and your lower back into the floor. Feel your pubic bone rock closer to your navel. And then go back and forth that way, just letting the tailbone drop down, lower back arches, there's your inhale. And as you exhale, feel the pubic bone glide toward the navel and the navel pull down and the low back flattens. Going back and forth a few times, waking up our abdominal wall, our hip flexors are waking up a little bit, because when you press that tailbone down and the low back arches, the other thing that happens is your front hip bones get pulled toward your thigh bones, and those are your hip flexors doing that. And then they release to let the pelvic rim press into the floor and the low back flatten. So small little muscles warming up and feeling your whole spine getting pushed and pulled. Noticing if you're trying to push your ribs toward the ceiling as you arch your back, see if you can just let them be soft. They may lift a little bit, but see if you can keep the mid-back muscles soft instead of feeling like they're aggressively working. And we're gonna add some arm movement on. So bring your hands down by your hips as you flatten your back into the floor. And as you inhale and rock the tailbone down and arch the low back, like you're drawing 2 stripes across the ceiling and then reaching your arms back toward the wall behind you. And as you exhale, the arms come back down the way they went up, and the low back flattens. You feel the low abdomen engage, and then inhaling, the arms reach back. The tailbone presses down, the low back arches, but keeping the low front ribs soft so they don't jut way up. And exhaling, the arms back down and pulling the lower back into the floor. And again, one more time, reaching the arms back, pressing the tailbone down, and we'll change it up. So as you exhale, sweep the arms around like a snow angel and rock your left thigh into your chest and give it a hug. And your left foot's probably going to be on the seat of the chair. And here's the scoop. Push the chair away if you can, or wiggle it away just an inch or 2. Just give yourself a little extra space, because we still want the chair, but we want to give ourselves a little room. And then give that left leg a hug. And if it needs to kind of spill off to the side a little bit because you feel like you're running into your bones or your abdomen, that's okay. Roll your ankle around, feel how this movement, this deep hip flexion, is helping to release or elongate your lower back muscles. And then with your next inhale, set your left lower leg back on your chair seat and reach your arms back overhead. And with your exhale, sweep the arms again around like a snow angel. Rock your right thigh in and give it a hug. The hands could be on top of the shin. They could be behind the crook of the knee, and you're just rolling that ankle around and maybe moving some breath into your lower back. And then when you're ready, we're gonna keep moving with the breath. So the inhale takes your lower legs back to the seat chair and the arms reach back. And the exhale sweeps the arms around, the left thigh comes in, the navel deepens toward the spine. We empty the breath out, and then we inhale the arms back and the leg back to the chair seat. And the exhale brings the right leg in, the navel draws toward the spine, the low back rounds. And you can keep moving like this, or you could add on an abdominal contraction. So when the arms sweep around and the left leg comes in, you might curl your ribs toward your hips and bring your forehead toward your knees. Your arms can help a little, shoulders are out of the ears. And then inhale the arms back and the leg back to the chair seat. And exhale, sweep the arms around. Right thigh comes in, the navel drops down, the low front ribs glide toward the front hips, the forehead comes to the knee, and that's only if that feels like a good movement for you. If it feels like a big strain, or if you have a hernia, keep your head and shoulders on the ground. If you have abdominal wall separation, keep the head and shoulders on the ground. But otherwise, you can keep going, curling forehead to knee, knee to forehead, pulling navel to spine, and just getting a little bit more spinal mobility here. Good job, everybody. And then when you're finished or feel balanced on both sides, the legs pause. And you're gonna take your feet to the edge of the chair, and again, it's just like maybe an inch. You slide the chair away just a tiny bit more, just giving yourself a little more room, not a ton. And your legs are flexed in at the hips, and we're gonna open the arms out to the side and roll the palms to the floor. So your arms are like a T to your trunk. And you're bringing your thighs in nice and close to your trunk. And here's what we're up to. We're gonna do a little bit of twisting. So hug the legs, and you could even put that block between your legs if you want something to hug, or just hug your legs into each other. And on your inhale, you're gonna take both of your legs to the left, maybe 1 inch. The right side of your pelvis will roll off the floor. As you exhale, bring your right hip back down, the knees come through the center. As you inhale, the legs go across to the right, and the left side of your hip will come off the floor a little bit. And as you exhale, it comes back to the center. And you're just gonna keep going. And again, the movement can be really small. You can roll your gaze away from the knees, and then bring the gaze and the knees back to the center. The inhale takes the legs across. The exhale brings them back, because the exhale, if you remember, if you've been practicing with me before, we can use that exhale to connect with our abdomen. So as you exhale out, feel how you can kind of engage with your abdominal wall. And the abdominals are what's helping you to turn your pelvis from side to side, your obliques. They run diagonally across the trunk, and they're elongating and then shortening. Now, this movement can become bigger. The legs could get closer to the floor, but not so big that it's a strain to pull the legs back up or to keep them from falling all the way down. So make sure the movement's just as big as feels good for you. We'll do one more from side to side. Using the exhale to come back to the center. And then when you're ready, set the legs back onto the chair seat. And the legs will be, the chair's kind of further away than we started. So there's a little less hip flexion now. And so just settling for a moment, let your lumbar curve return. And maybe tip and tuck the pelvis a little bit, that introductory movement we were playing with earlier. Little release. Okay. Now, the next movement we're going to take is a hip stretch. It's figure 4 pose. I have a couple folks in practice today who have a history or even current episodes of sciatica, where there's the sciatic nerve in the gluteal region is getting pressed. So you're just going to be nice and easy as you move into this shape. You want to make sure your chair is on your sticky mat so that it doesn't slide away from you. So if you need to do any adjusting, make sure you roll onto your side, pull the chair in closer, and then roll back up. Make sure you're not lifting and twisting or doing anything funny that might hurt your lower back. So you're going to take your right ankle and cross it over your left thigh. Your right ankle crosses over your left thigh. You're making a figure 4 shape. And both sides of your pelvis are balanced evenly on the floor, and both sides of your waist are evenly long. And there's a sense of pressing your right thigh away from your trunk, not with your hand. You could kind of use your hand to sort of guide the leg, but see if you can use the muscles that are deep in the hip joint to really get that leg to press away. Make sure the pelvis doesn't go with the leg. And that might be enough hip stretch right now. If you'd like more stretch and more opening, you're going to take your left foot and maybe slide it toward the edge of your chair seat. And that's going to pull those legs in closer to your trunk. Now, if all of a sudden your pelvis is spilling across to the right, you've come in too deep, right? So you might even use your foot to send the chair away if you need a little more space. See if you can get to a place where you're balanced evenly on the right side of the pelvis and on the left side of the pelvis. And you're just being held here. And the arms can open out to the side, perpendicular to your trunk. And now let's roll the palms up so that you have a nice external rotation to the arms and you're reaching the fingers away from the heart. And the tailbone and the sit bones are rocking back toward the floor. And again, if you feel like you're too scrunched up, you could even send the foot, let it slide across the chair seat back toward the back of the chair seat to just unflex your hips a little bit if you need a little more room here. Take about 3 more breaths. Okay, and I'm just gonna move around the room. So you guys hold that shape. I'm just getting up. Jerry, can your legs move back across this way? And then keep that figure 4 shape. And then just roll this leg, press this toward the chair. And do you feel that date changes the hip opening in your right hip at all? Do you feel a stretch? Okay, that's where we want to be right now, if that's okay. Is that okay? If you liked any of those different shapes better, go ahead and take them. Okay, now when you're ready, we're going to change. So go ahead and let your legs slide back onto the chair seat and switch sides. So you're going to take your other ankle, I believe it's your left ankle, over your right thigh, and feel that you're balanced on your right hip and your left hip, and press the outer left thigh away from the trunk. You know, you have the inseam of the leg, and then there's, I call it the out seam of the leg, and you're pressing the out seam of the leg away from you, away from your trunk. And that might be enough, especially if you have a big sciatica flare-up going. Flex your foot, flex the left foot. And then if you want to deepen, you're gonna start to draw your thighs in a little closer. Maybe your right foot comes to the edge of your chair. And if that's too close, push the chair away a little bit. But of course, if the chair goes off your sticky mat, it's just gonna keep sliding. So maybe you have to move your body back away from the chair. So figure that out. Reach the arms out to the side, palms roll up, and there's a nice bright energy from heart reaching out through the arms to the fingertips, and from the back of the heart down the back of the arms to the fingertips, and taking a couple more nice deep breaths here. Good. And then when you're ready, set your left foot back on the chair seat. And now let's go ahead and just send the chair away. It gets to go away. It might be loud in the yoga studio for a second. And I think I had you can put your feet on the ground. And I think I had you grab a strap and a block. So right now, let's grab the block, everybody. Grab the block. And this, if you're at home, this could be a pillow too. You're just gonna slide a block or a folded blanket underneath the back of your pelvis so that you get a little bit of lift underneath your hips. And if that feels like it's too hard or something, you could use a folded blanket instead, or if it feels like it's too high, a low blanket suffices. Find a position where your spine feels like a hammock. It's hanging toward the floor instead of rainbowing up away from the floor. Let it hang. Feel your pubic bone, if that's okay. Feel your pubic bone with your fingertips, and then find your front hip bones. Can the pubic bone be a tiny bit closer to the ceiling than your front hip bone? So you're in a posterior tilt to your pelvis, which eliminates your lumbar curve. It makes it hang. And then take your hands to your front ribs. And invite your front ribs to soften down toward your back ribs. And then maybe if you push your elbows down into the ground alongside your trunk, you could drag your low back ribs away from the pelvic rim a little bit. It's a little move, it's a little tractioning move, but you just feel kind of sunken in your trunk. And from here, we're gonna rock the left thigh into the chest. So there's that nice deep hip crease. The left thigh comes in, we were here earlier. And the right leg is gonna slide straight as feels helpful, doesn't have to be really aggressive. Toes point toward the ceiling, knee points toward the ceiling. So the right knee and toes point straight up rather than rolling out to the side. And then take a few deep breaths here. So we were doing a lot of things that flexed us at the hips earlier, and we're doing another thing that's flexed at the hip and the left hip at the moment. But feel how the right hip is in hip extension. It's open. Our hip flexors are elongating. And then gently press the back of your right heel into the ground. Just gently, it's not aggressive, and feel your hamstrings and your gluteal muscles turn on a little bit. Take a few big deep breaths so the belly feels nice and natural, able to expand on the inhale. Feel all of your belly organs hollow back to the spine on the exhale. And then when you're ready, set your left foot down on the ground, pull your right foot back in next to your left foot. Reorganize yourself on that block if you feel like you're falling off of it. And then rock your right thigh into your chest. And make sure your left foot is aligned with your left sit bone, and then slide your left leg slowly away from the block. The toes point toward the ceiling. The back of the heel is on the ground. If that feels like it's impossible because your hips are up too high, lower the height. Maybe put a blanket under you instead of a block. So making sure you're not straining. Let the front ribs spill toward the back ribs. Let the back ribs spill into the floor. Take a few nice deep breaths here and feel your left back heel pressing down into the ground gently to feel the hamstrings engage. And again, if you have a big sciatica flare up, activating the hamstrings or the gluteal muscles too hard might actually flare it up more. So you have to just watch. That sciatic nerve it passes from the sacrum, crosses under your gluteal muscles and runs down the back of the leg under your hamstrings. So if you're flared up right now, just be really mindful and be gentle. And then when you're ready, set your right foot down and set your left foot down so that both of your feet are planted on the floor parallel with each other and in line with your sit bones. And you're going to imagine there's a block between your thighs that you're holding. Okay, imagine you're holding a block between your thighs, and bring your hands to the top of your thighs where the thigh bones come into the hip sockets. Your hands are right there. You're going to push your feet down. Push the feet down. And as you do that, can your pelvis, even if it's just a millimeter, can your pelvis lift off the block so that you're in bridge pose? As the pelvis lifts off the block, can you send your thighs toward your knees with your hands? You might get a Charlie horse. And then fish the block out from under you and stick it between your legs while you stay elevated. Just hug on to it. I'm really sorry if you did just get a Charlie horse, but if you did, it means that your hamstrings fired, which is a good thing. But if you need to stretch your leg out for a second, stretch it out and then come back into your bridge pose. So there's a block between your thighs. You're thinking about sending your thighs toward your knees. You're giving the block a little bit of a hug. Your front ribs are soft and the arms can be firming down into the ground. Take 2 more breaths. Soft face, soft jaw. And then when you're ready, release and let the pelvis come down. And pull the block out from between your legs and find your strap that I had you have nearby. Unravel it, and rocking your left leg back into your trunk, take the strap over your left foot and reach your left leg into the sky, which will feel really nice, especially if you just got a Charlie horse, which again, I'm apologizing for. I should have warned you. Okay, good. And then slide your right leg straight, if that feels okay for your lower back. Okay, so here we are in our reclined leg stretch. In Sanskrit, this is Supta Padangusthasana. Feel the femur head deepening into the back of the hip socket, like it's moving toward the earth. Make sure you've given yourself enough strap that you don't feel like there's too much stretching sensation, that your body's resisting and hardening. Just enough stretch that you can breathe and feel your body releasing and softening. Think about sending the head of your femur toward your sit bone. Feel your left side of your waist elongating, and let the arms move into their sockets and your shoulder blades draw down the back. And then when you're ready, bend your right knee and stick your right foot up next to your left foot. And then take your left foot to the floor. Level off the pelvis. Feel like your two sit bones are equidistant from the bottom of your yoga mat. And then slide your left leg out nice and long and active. The knee and the toes point toward the ceiling. You're reaching evenly through the inner and outer feet, and giving yourself just enough strap so you're not overstretching, just the right amount of sensation. Feel the femur moving toward the sit bone, and that's a subtle cue, but it's good to remember that your leg is connected to your spine via your psoas. So there's the psoas that runs up along the sides of your spine. It's a humongous muscle. It's a spinal postural muscle, and at the bottom, where it then goes into the pelvic bowl, crosses over the side of the pubic bone and attaches to your upper inner thigh, those fibers are hip flexors. And so we can think about that connection from the inner leg to the spine and find a little bit of space. And then when you're ready, set your right foot down. And we're going to roll over onto either side and be slow. We've been on our backs for a while. Just slowly, maybe pause on your side for a second, take a couple breaths. And then use an arm to spiral your way up. Hello, hello everybody. We're gonna come all the way up to standing now. So really, like, take your time, because I went up to standing earlier from that and I got lightheaded. So just be mindful. So coming up off of the floor, and we're gonna grab our chairs again. And I'm sorry, I was telling my students, I should spray paint my chair orange so that it doesn't disappear into my gray wall, but I have a gray chair and a gray wall. I'm sorry. So we're gonna take the back of the chair and have it face, we're standing so that the back of the chair is close to us. And I know that at home, everybody has different height chairs. It's actually pretty nice. If you have a high back chair, that's really nice for this next activity. So what we're gonna do is have our hands on the sides of the top of the chair. So the hands are about shoulder width apart if possible. And we're gonna step back, step, 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 until your arms can be nice and long and straight. And you're gonna bend your knees, the feet, if possible, the heels are underneath your hip joint. And the knees are bent, especially if the hamstrings are on the tighter side. So that if you bend your knees, you can tip and tuck your pelvis a little bit, feel your lower back rounding, and then back bending, just like you were doing that pelvic tilting on your back earlier. And then at some point, find neutral, which is where you'll have a little bit of a lumbar concavity. It's not rounded. And the upper back is unrounded, and the crown of your head and your pelvic floor and your sit bones are reaching in opposition. So there's a sense of length. You're pushing down into the chair. The elbows are straight. So see if you can bring the heels of your hands to the chair instead of your fingers, and press down. And think about the elbow creases rolling up toward the ceiling and the tips of the elbows wrapping down toward the floor. Take another breath. The ears are in line with the arms. Broaden the shoulder blades away from each other. And then when you're ready, go ahead and walk forward and stand all the way back up. When you come up to standing, externally rotate your arms and reach your arms into the sky. Extended mountain pose. Take a nice deep breath here. And then bring your hands back to the chair and walk back one more time. You're just going to step back. So again, the hands could even be, the heels of the hands are on the chair. They're as wide as you can get them to be on the chair. And you're getting really long. It's like you're trying to send the chair forward and you're trying to send your pelvis and sit bones away from the chair. And the crown of the head and the pelvic floor are telescoping away from each other. And if you're really flexible, there's a tendency to just drop into your shoulders and to drop your ribs down toward the ground. I want you to collect those ribs in. Not so that you round your mid back, but just so that everything is balanced. Your pelvis and your rib cage and your head feel like they're all on the same plane. Take one more breath, and then when you're ready, go ahead and step forward. And again, once you bring your feet underneath your hips, shoulders over the hips, roll the arms out, reach your arms into the sky. Extended mountain pose. Fingers spread, rooting down to rise up. Take another deep breath here. And then release your arms down. Good. So we're going to sit on our chairs for a second. If you have a couple blocks, so again, if you're at home, your chairs might be taller than our chairs. If you're in the studio, I'm going to invite you, unless you have really short legs, to take your blocks and put them on the edge of your chair seat so that when you sit down, your hips are a little bit higher than your knees, but your feet can be planted. So you just kind of have to figure out, and so same idea at home. If you need a little more height so your hips are a little higher than your knees, please take care of yourself and grab what you need. Okay, so the feet are planted on the floor, hands are on the thighs. We're going to tuck the tailbone underneath us and scoop the belly out and move into a flexed spine. The chin comes toward the chest, the shoulder blades spread. And then sweep your tailbone out from underneath you. Feel your front hip bone slide toward the thigh bones and lift the spine into extension. Look up, open across the front of the chest. Do that again. Tuck the tail under, ice cream scoop out the belly. So this is abdominal strengthening. And then untuck the tail, sweep the tailbone out from underneath you, lengthen the spine. And as you open and lift up, maybe the arms can open. So out to the side, Jerry. There you go. And you get a nice chest opening. Now exhaling, tuck the tail under you. And like you're going to clap your hands together right in front of your shoulders. They'll be about head height. And then untuck the tail, lifting the spine into extension, opening the arms up, opening the heart up. And two more times, just back and forth. So watch, we don't want to come into a big fold here, but you're staying upright. And just finding a nice flexed spine and then opening back up. Good. And then when you're ready, bringing your hands back to your thighs. Good. Bring your shoulders up into your ears. Inhale, squeeze them back together. See if you can get the shoulder blades to squeeze back behind you like you're catching a quarter between your shoulder blades. And then draw them down your back. So the heads of the shoulders can come forward. They can lift up, they can pull back, feel your scapula go back with them, and they can depress down. Do that again. Forward, up, back, and down, and then go the other way. Go back, up, round them forward and down. One more time, back, up, forward, and down. Good. Bring your fingertips to your shoulders. Bring your elbow tips toward each other. And then pull the elbow tips away from each other and feel the shoulder blades come closer together on your back and how that opens up the pectoral line. Elbows come together, elbows pull apart. When the elbows pull apart, it wakes up our rhomboids, our mid-trapezius. Those are some muscles on the back of our body and then the back of the shoulders. They get really tired and they get weak, especially when we do a lot of things out in front of us with our head forward of our spine. So we're just kind of getting things to wake up. Now, Can you touch the elbows, and then can they go up and around like you're drawing circles? Now, remember that if you have something going on in your shoulders and any of these movements feel like they're not a good idea for you, maybe on just one arm or the other, please honor that and pause and rest. And then change directions. I am hearing all kinds of crackling and popping in my shoulder joint. You might hear your own. A little crackling and popping is nothing to fret about. All of our joints change over time. So, all right. And then when you're ready, release. And then heel toe your feet away from each other. So your legs are wide. Your ears are over your shoulders are over your hips, your corners of your feet are grounded. We're reaching our arms up into the sky. We're going to do a little lateral flexion for the spine. So you're just letting one arm spill down and finding a little side bend. And then you can come back up and the other arm spills down. So as you go to the right, feel your left sit bone stays nice and grounded. And as you go to the left, feel your right sit bone stays nice and grounded. And these movements are as big or as small as feels good in your body. You could imagine some, I don't know, desert grass just blowing in a breeze. Gentle movement. Good. One more time, back and forth. And then when you're ready, we're going to come back to the center and just release the arms down. Okay, so we're going to come off of our blocks because we need them. So before we do that, let's do a few chair pose to mountain pose. So you're going to take your heels will be either under your knees or a little behind them, and your feet are parallel. Thumbs come to your hip creases. You're going from your inner groins and you're widening it out to your outer hip creases, and then you're going to hinge your pelvis forward. The tailbone sweeps out from behind you. And then see if you can hinge forward so much, maybe reach your arms forward, reach until your sit bone's unweighed and suddenly on your feet. So your buns are not on the blocks anymore. And then stand all the way up and press the arms back and find shoulder extension, strong triceps. Now you need to make sure that the chair is there to catch you. We're going to go back down the way we came up. You're going to reach the arms forward and you're going to try to get nice ankle flexion, knee flexion, feel the corners of the feet grounded, reach those sit bones back down slowly, and then sit up and press the arms back, shoulder extension, open up the heart, sit up tall, upper chest lifts. And then hinge the pelvis forward. Reach the arms forward. It's not momentum. See if you can feel that subtle shift of weight, and then push down, use your quads, use your gluteal muscles to straighten the legs, press the arms back, find your triceps and your lats, and then hinge at the hips and at the knees and reach forward and a light touchdown. Make sure it's there before you sit back, and then pull those arms back, extension. 2 more times. Hinging forward, reaching forward, slow shift, and then quads and glutes work together. Think about widening your mat with your feet. Widen the mat with your feet as you come down. This is going to be, we're going to lift up one more time. Jerry, am I killing your knees? Are you doing okay? All right, come to standing. Remember this again, if I'm asking you to do something and you're feeling like it's not the best thing for any part of your body, please know you can stop at any time. So here we go. We're going to pull those blocks out of the way, and they're in your hands, and you get to go down one more time. Jerry, you get to sit down however it doesn't bother your knees to sit down, but if you can, we're going to go down. The seat's a little lower now, so you have to reach those blocks forward, bend the knees, reach, go slow, touch down and sit up. And we're lower than we were. So we're going to take the legs wide again. We're going to take our blocks and they're going to be on their highest setting right in front of us. And come to the very front edge of your chair seat. And run your thumbs from your inner groins along the groins to your outer hip creases. It's like you're trying to take those outer hip creases. So they're out here. So you're going from inner groins to outer hips, and you're trying to widen them toward the back of your chair seat. And then you're sweeping that tailbone and your sit bones back toward the chair behind you. That's going to take your pelvis forward. Feel that? Keep the spine long. Bring your hands to your blocks. So Jerry, take a look at me. Can you come up high enough so that you're not, so what we don't want is for us to round the spine here. I want you to keep your head lifted. I want you to think about pushing the blocks down and almost trying to pull the blocks. You could be up on your fingertips, pull them toward the chair seat. So your sternum comes forward and up through the frame of your arms. And you're still trying to sweep that tail back behind you, and the knees tracking right over the middle of the foot. So maybe they press out a tiny bit. This might be a big hamstring or groin stretch for some, and some of you might be like, why or what? I don't feel anything. And so you're going to tip the blocks down a notch and come a little lower, but not by rounding the upper back, but by moving that pelvis lower. So keep the upper back nice and long. So this is some deep hip flexion. Feel the knees pressing out a little bit. Now, your left hand, I'm mirroring for the folks in front of me. So just following instructions, the left hand pushes down into the block. The right hand comes to your thigh. You've got a long spine. You're going to push into that right hand and turn your trunk, turn your spine to the right. Take a breath so that you're sending the block down into the floor. You're pressing your hand into your thigh. And as you exhale, think about your abdominal muscles helping to turn your trunk. Don't force anything. Take another breath here. From here, you're going to push into that thigh with your hand and push down into your feet and bring your pelvis up. Bring your left hand, the back of it, to your inner left thigh. Press and press your thigh back into your hand. Bring your right hand behind your head. Turn to your right. And then exhaling, hug that right elbow in and unwind. Bring your heart back to the center. And then open the elbow up and press hand into that leg and turn to your right. And then wrap the elbow in and bring your trunk back to the center. Do that 2 more times. You're turning to the right, pressing hand and thigh into each other, rotating the ribs and spine, coming back to the center. And 1 more time, elbow pulls back and we rotate. And then we come back to the center and the hands come down. Good job. Thumbs to hip creases. Outer hip creases draw back with a nice long spine. Sweep the tailbone and the sit bones back. The pelvis tips forward. You bring your hands to your blocks. They might be high blocks. They might be medium height blocks. You might feel like you could get rid of them and keep a long spine. So whatever feels good to you. Take a moment here. Think about trying to pull, almost like you're pulling the blocks toward the chair to pull the upper sternum forward, but let the bottom of the sternum rest back toward the spine. So many weird instructions from your teacher, huh? Bring your left hand to your thigh. Press your right hand down into the block and your left hand into your thigh and start to turn your spine, your upper abdomen, your low ribs, your upper ribs, turning. Careful that you're not in the back bend in the mid-back. And take a few breaths here, the crown and the tail lengthening away from each other. Good. And then pressing down into feet and pressing into that left hand. Bring your pelvis upright. Bring the back of your right hand to the inner right thigh. Bring your left hand to the back of your head. Turn your spine to the left, the elbow opening out to the left. And then bring your heart and your lungs and your rib cage back to the center. Unwind and the elbow hugs into your head. So unwinding and then turning again. How do you want to move with your breath? Maybe the exhale moves you into the twist, the inhale brings you out of it. So keep going and just keep opening and closing. One more time. Good job. And then when you're finished, releasing, and we're gonna bring those legs back in front of us. And again, there's not as much height underneath our seat. We're gonna come up out of that chair pose. And again, Jerry, I want you to just make sure to stand up in a way that feels good on your knees, and anybody else who has arthritic knees. If this isn't feeling great for you, reaching forward, push down through those heels, find the quads, find the glutes, stand up, pull the arms back. Good. One more time, reach back, touch those sit bones down, go slowly. Good job. I know the chair back there, shoulder extension, reach forward, try to widen the mat with your feet, push down, float up, go slow, pull those arms back, and then pause. Good job. Roll your shoulders up into your ears and back and down. Okay, so we need a toe stretch really quick so that the next thing we do feels better than it would without stretching our toes. So you can take a block and wedge it into a wall or into a large piece of furniture. And we're gonna take our toes up the block, and I'm gonna pull my camera over so that my students who are at home can see the profile of what is happening here. Okay, so, and then again, you guys are looking at my back. So if you're like, what is she doing? Come close and see. But you're sticking a block into the wall, and then you're standing in front of it. And if it feels okay, because I know people have arthritic toes, or you might have some hardware in your toes from surgeries, but if it feels okay, you're taking the ball of your right foot to the edge of the block, and then you're dragging the ball of the foot down the block so that your toes bend up the block. And you just do the best you can. So maybe you can't take your foot all the way down, but you can get a little bit of a bend in your toes, great. If you can, step forward into mountain pose. So standing leg next to leg and standing tall, bringing your hips over your ankles, your shoulders over your hips, your ears over your shoulders. And then again, these are all progressions. You do them if it feels okay. If it's possible, your knees bend a little bit and then they straighten. If that creates strain at your Achilles tendon, or if you're feeling any pain on the sole of your foot, we want to back off. So the knee bending might be too much. We're working with our plantar fascia right now and our toe flexors. And we do want to maintain toe flexibility because we want to keep being able to do things like standing up on our toes and reaching things in the tall counters or tall cabinets at home. Or, I mean, there's got to be so many things we do that we lift up onto the balls of our feet for. Now, when you're ready, release and just give your toes a little wiggle out and slide that block so that it's in front of your other foot, and do the same thing. Toes tuck under, or the ball of the foot comes to the edge of the block, and then you drag the ball of the foot down, and then you step forward and lengthen up through the spine. So if you can your shoulders come back over your hips, and can your head come back over your spine, even if your leg's out in front of you, rather than looking down at the block and looking down at your toes, because we do that all day long. We hang our head forward of our spine, and that creates a lot of strain in our cervical spine and in the neck and shoulder muscles. So bending and straightening the knees if that's available, or otherwise just be still and be where you are and smooth this and steady the breath out a little bit. Good. All right, now when you're ready, release. And you could just stay close to the wall, or you could come back to your chair. We're going to give ourselves a quad stretch next. And so standing next to something, bending your left leg, and see if you can catch your foot with your hand, or maybe you need to grab your strap and lasso your foot. So, and then another option could be to have your chair behind you and you set your foot on the chair, which is a really nice option. Jerry, what do you think of this? Would this be nice for you? Would that be enough quad stretch? Yeah. So that's for like, if you don't have a lot of knee flexion, or if you're super tight, just setting your foot onto the seat of a chair might be plenty. Good balance too. Do you want, here, have this next to you. Just in case, please. All right. So take another breath and think about lengthening down the front of the thigh, drawing the front hips toward the ribs, drawing the front ribs back down toward the hips if they feel flared. Feel your gluteal muscles engage a little bit. And if you feel like you're pretty steady here, you could take your hand off the wall or off the chair. Maybe your arms reach into the sky. And you're in Natarajasana, dancer pose. Okay, so if you're holding on to a foot, one arm's reaching into the sky. Your gaze is somewhere steady out in front of you. And then when you're ready, ease your way out, and we get to switch sides. Okay, so pulling, if you've got a chair nearby, making sure it's on your other side. Okay, and we're gonna stand on the other leg. I'm gonna just face this way. I'm gonna use my chair as my balance off to my side. And then thinking about the thighs coming back in line with each other. If the knee's winging way out to the side, don't force anything, but see if the knee can come back under the hip, the heel toward the glute. There's a sense of lengthening the thigh down toward the knee and drawing your front hip bones up toward your ribs. Your front ribs might feel flared. Can they soften down? Taking a few more breaths here. And again, maybe it turns into a balance, reaching one of your arms or both of your arms into the sky if you have a foot on a chair. Good. And then when you're ready, release. Good. So one last little chair move here. And I'm moving my folks at home back to their original spot. You need your blocks in your chair. And so here's what it looks like. You put your blocks back down on the edge of the seat. They're going to give you a little bit of height. And we're going to sit on the chair so that your right side, your right hip's on the block, your right foot is on the floor, and the side of your chair is to the right of you. Okay? Your pelvis is nice and upright. You can hold on to the side of the chair with your right hand. And from here, we're going to take the left leg and we're going to pull it back so that it hangs toward the floor and the toes are tucked under. That's why we toe stretched. So you're in a 90-90 lunge. So actually make sure the knees, take a look at me, make sure the knee's not in front of the hip. If possible, wiggle that foot back, get it underneath the hip. And then take your left hand to your pelvis and wrap the left hip forward. And then feel that your left gluteal muscles engage and your low abdomen engages. So you get a little quad stretch here, yeah? Yeah. Now you can just hang out here. Front ribs are soft. If you feel like you want some strengthening, push your right heel down, push your left foot down and float up just a little bit off the blocks. It's going to turn your quads on and your gluteals are still working. Now take the outside arm up. Good, and maybe your right hand comes to the seat of the chair and you find a side bend. The left arm coming up and over the right side body. Keep engaging your left glutes. Good, keep pushing the feet down, keep drawing the low abdomen up, and all the while you're breathing, right? Lots to do here. Take another breath. And then when you're ready, come back upright, release that left arm down, bring your left leg forward. Are you guys mad at me or are we okay? Let's go the other way. Go ahead and scoot around. And Back of the chair seat's going to be to the left of you. I'm showing you fancy things you can do in the middle of the day, and all you need is a chair, right? To release cranky lower backs or whatever it is that's cranky. So the left foot, the heel is under the left knee. Your hips are square, straight ahead. You're going to pull the right leg, the outer leg back. And we want to pull it back far enough so the knee is under the hip instead of out in front of it, if possible, if that's not too much of a strain. Now, take your right hand to your right pelvic rim, glide it forward so your hips are more square. Feel your right gluteal muscles engage and your low abdomen engage. Feel the front of that right hip open more. Now push down with both feet and float up a little. Front ribs are soft. Take the right arm up into the sky. Good. Your left hand comes to your chair seat. You start to lengthen up through the right side and then find a side bend. Arcing that right side up over the left side. Keep pressing down with the feet. Keep drawing up with the low abdomen. Feel your glutes engage, the inner legs hugging to the midline. Take one more breath. And then draw yourself back up. Let your hips come down. Bring your legs back through the center. Hinge forward, reach forward, stand all the way up again. Good job. Swing yourself around. Find the back of your chair. Now, at this moment, if you just want to go onto the ground and take a regular, more traditional downward facing dog, please do whatever you want. If you like the chair dog, the hands are on the back of the chair seat and we reach our hips back again. Okay, downward facing dog, you might work your hands to the floor and walk your feet away from your hands. This is going to put a little more weight into the shoulders, a little stronger for the shoulders, a little different angle for the hamstrings, a little more calf opening if you do the more traditional downward facing dog. Good. And then wherever you are, making your way to all fours, the knees come down. So getting that way, if you were doing your chair down dog, just making your way to the floor. And we're going to swing ourselves around and ease our way, maybe holding onto the back of the legs and ease our way onto our backs. And the arms open out wide and the feet are wider than hip width apart. Windshield wiper, bring the legs to the left, roll the gaze to the right. Windshield wiper, bring the legs to the right, roll the gaze to the left. Back and forth a couple more times. Good. When you feel like you're a little softer, a little more settled, then begin to stretch your legs out for Shavasana. You could put a rolled blanket under your knees. You could decide to take your legs back up onto the seat of your chair. If you like that beginning, it could also be a nice ending. And then a few deep breaths, the exhales inviting you to settle, to let go, to move towards stillness. Feeling your jaw soften, feeling the muscle behind the eyes release. Feeling the back of your body widening and spreading and resting into the ground. And that the belly is natural. It gets to move in its own way with the inhale and exhale, letting go of any unnecessary tension or holding there.
you're at home, of course, you can stay in Shavasana as long as you like. We're joining us in deepening your breath and inviting some movement back into your fingers and your toes. Think about making our way back onto our side bodies and then upright to a comfortable seat. Give yourself whatever height you need underneath your pelvis so that it feels easy, unstrained. To bring your pelvis upright, to bring your spine upright, you can sit in a chair if that's the best place to sit for you. And as you feel the pelvis level like a bowl of water and feel the rib cage balanced levelly over the pelvis, the shoulder girdle resting right on top of the rib cage and the head's balanced right over the spine, we feel that when we find that sense of center, that plumb line, there's ease. There's a groundedness, there's a liftedness, the breath and the belly can be soft. Shoulders can relax, the jaw can release. Rolling our palms skyward, inhaling and bringing hands to heart with an exhale. Bowing inwardly and giving yourself a little thank you and some love for setting time aside to be in your body, to be in your own presence and everybody else's presence and community here. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Namaste. Namaste. Good job.
Thank you, Kathleen. That was excellent.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Katie. No rain yet, but now I have to look forward to.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we get some rain.
I know.
Good.
That felt wonderful. That was a lovely workout.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you could be here, Barbara. And you too, David.
You were so good, Kathleen. I love it.
Thank you. How's your hip feeling in your low back?
Oh, that all went away.
Oh, good.
You can take some credit for that.
Yay. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks so much, Katie. We'll see you all back here next week.
Bye-bye, Tori.
Bye, Barbara.